Alive in 5, 4, 3. You know the rest. Let's do it. Yells. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to GarageBand Weekly, the only weekly show dedicated to GarageBand. As far as I know. Who knows? There could be others, but if there are others, I don't know about them. In this show, we're going to talk more iPhone 13 rumors, what is next for our favorite little mobile device. Our feature topic today is all about bass. We'll be showing you a bunch of different ways to add bass to your GarageBand iOS tracks, and we've got tips and apps of the week as well to get into. But before we do that, hello to the folks who are here live, watching us live on YouTube or Facebook. We got folks of the likes of Kim and Mark and SM Borthwick in factions here, Jerry Marsh, Andy Goldsby. Hello to all of you folks and anyone else who jumps on in. If you've got questions, we will try to answer them. We'll have some Q&A as we go through the show. Auntie G, I think I saw in the house there too. Hello. Hello to you and to everyone. But let's tuck on in to the news. I said tuck into the news of the week. And I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot in the way of really sort of groundbreaking news when it comes to the world of GarageBand or the iOS world in general. But the biggest sort of talk and the biggest topic that I'm hearing at the moment is what's next from an Apple point of view. So what will be the next devices? When will be the next announcement? Are we going to have something in March, which has been rumored? So do we have some new iPads coming? And if so, what are we going to get? Because as you'd probably be aware, and I've been ranting about this for the last year doing this show, that we had so much in 2020. For a year that was kind of interesting for other reasons, we had so many new devices. It all started with the iPad Pro 2020. We also got the new iPad, the new standalone one, the iPad Air 4th gen came out in 2020. And then, of course, we had a slew of iPhones. We had the iPhone SE 2, which is the updated version of the SE, which is the sort of slightly lesser spec'd iPhone, but still packs a punch. And then, of course, we had 4 different iPhone 12s released in the year. Not to mention all the other things, the AirPods Pro, the AirPods Max, the little dock, the little speaker. Yeah, there was too much. Apple Watch Series 5. So there was a lot that went on in 2020. So for the fact that we're nearly at February and we haven't had an announcement yet, everyone's like, oh no, Apple, what have you done? You stopped. But there's a lot of talk at the moment. So the big thing is, what is the iPad going to be? I really don't know, because the 4th gen of the iPad Air is still very current. iPad Pro, we don't tend to see an update every year. We had the 2018 and then the 2020, and the regular iPad just had a complete revamp. So a Mini 6, is that what's in the radar? I don't know. Like with the new iPhones going up to like 6.5 inches in size, is there a market for a 7.9-inch iPad? What do you reckon? Anyone rocking the Mini? Anyone be excited to see like a Mini 6, a new version of the Mini with the new processors, a new chip, maybe with USB-C, maybe with the Face ID instead of fingerprint, with the bezel, like the nice bezel around the edge like the Pro and like the Air 4th gen? I don't know. The iPhone, however, there's lots of little tidbits of rumors that are going on around. So let's talk about some of those. Now, the portless rumor just won't go away, that Apple are determined to remove every port from our phones. So you'd realize that from the iPhone 7, we've been left with just the single Lightning port, and that has continued to be the case right up to iPhone 12s. All of the iPhone 12s, including the Pro and the Pro Max, all have that single Lightning connection. Now that's okay for us as creators, because we can plug pretty much anything into that via a Lightning to USB 3 adapter. Say it with me, Lightning to USB 3 adapter. The problem is, if Apple go down this route that everyone seems to be rumoring they will, and remove all the ports, as creators, that's going to make life difficult. So now, originally I thought that maybe they would have the iPhone 13 that was portless, and then the 13 Pro would be the one that actually has a USB-C port in it. The rumors we're getting now is it's actually going to be flipped around, that the higher end iPhone will actually be the portless version. So people that want the premium are going to want no ports on their phone. Now, again, I find that that would be a big middle finger to creators from Apple, because the Pro line is supposed to be for professionals and for creative professionals. And if you're a creative professional creating video or music or art and using your phone, you need a way to be able to connect your stuff to it. So having a portless model in that would be a little bit weird. There's talk that they'll work on a smart connector. So if you've used one of the more recent iPads, especially the iPad Pros, you'll realize they have a little smart dock connector, which does allow at least some sort of data transfer. So there's rumors that maybe the portless version will have the smart connector, meaning you could still connect it up, and maybe they would then sell, yes, an accessory range that we can then have and connect up our iPhones to things. Can you imagine that? Having to spend $2,500 on a phone and then having to buy a $300 dock that you connect up, that you put your smart connector on, and then it gives you a USB-C port. Yeah. I mean, this is all speculation. This is all rumors right now, but yeah, I don't put anything past Apple at the moment. The other big thing is, and this one I'm excited about, is Touch ID is not dead and buried. It is rumored to be coming back. You may have noticed that some of the newer phones have Touch ID without the little button, so it's actually built into the screen. Now, Apple weren't able to, they weren't quick enough, they didn't have the technology enough to put that on the iPhone 12, but the rumor is that the iPhone 13 will come with both Face ID and a fingerprint scanner built right in. Now, that's going to be good if, like me, you fumble around for your phone in the dark and then you can't see your face, or you're wearing a mask, or you're wearing sunglasses and a hat, as I was doing on the weekend. There's a bunch of different use cases for why Face ID is a giant turd. So the ability to have face and touch, and it can just switch between the two, would actually be awesome. It would be a reason why I would want to update, because I really dislike having just the Face ID. It really doesn't work for me in normal sense. And the other thing I mentioned is the notch. Can we please get rid of the notch? So the reason you have the notch there is that that's your speaker, right? You've got a notch up the top of your phone because that's your speaker, and that's your front-facing camera. Now, the speakers on the bottom are on the bottom. Why are the speakers on the top can't be on the top? And the camera, for the size of the camera that they have in there, surely they can hide that in there somehow behind a pixel. I don't know. I mean, I'm still a fan of bezels. I still lust for. I just whacked my entire setup. I still lust for this design. This is the iPhone 6S. And I don't think there's been a better, sleeker, more elegantly designed iPhone in the history of iPhones. And guess what? Headphone jack. So yes, if I had it my way, you would have these beautiful, thick, chunky bezels on the top and the bottom. You'd still have a Touch ID fingerprint sensor that's an actual clicky button. You'd still have a headphone jack. But you know what? Old man John's, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be that way. So you can want and wish as much as you like, but it ain't going to come true. So there you go. There's your update. There's your 5-minute update on all things that Apple may or may not do. Oh yes, and sorry, I did miss one. And thanks SM Borthwick here says one thing which is very interesting. Will it be the 12S or the 13? That is the one final thing I actually had in my notes here that I forgot to mention. 12S or 13? Well, the thing is, it's all marketing at the end of the day. Excuse me, I need to sneeze. The joys of live video. Yeah, when you got to sneeze, you got to sneeze. Hopefully that didn't. Anyway, 12S or 13. The question is, it doesn't really matter, and it'll be interesting to see, because Apple did have the S modifiers, so you'd be aware that when the 4 came out, then there was the 4S, the 5, the 5S, the 6, the wonderful 6S. But then they went 7, and then they went 8, and then they went 10, but then they went 10R and 10S, so they kind of switched it up a little bit there. Then they went 11, then they went 12. So the S hasn't really been around for a while. So you'd say, well, then they'll just go straight to the 13. The other thing is, are they going to abandon the 13? Are they going to be like building designers in the US that refuse to put a 13th floor in because it's unlucky? I mean, come on, people. It's 2021 now. Let's not go that we can't use 13 because it's unlucky and it's superstitious. But consumers are consumers. They'll probably do their research, and if they find out that even 20% of consumers won't buy a phone because it's called a 13 and they think 13 is unlucky, guess what? They're not going to name it the 13. My thing is, they'll probably go back to Roman numerals. Remember when the 10 came out and we're all confused as to whether it was the 10 or the X? They'll go back to that. So it'll be the XV for some reason. It'll just go to 15. They'll just jump it. Mark it right here now. They'll skip 13 and 14 for no apparent reason. They'll go back to Roman numerals and it'll be called the XV. just because marketing. We've got some 6S love here. Yeah, Gary Hubbs, Andy Goldsby loves his 6S, as does Gary Hubbs. It is a beauty. If you've got a 6S like I do, put it in the freezer or keep it well somehow. I don't know. And as Tom says, maybe I missed that. As Tom says, maybe they'll go straight to the 14. Yeah, again, I'm calling it that they're going straight to the 15, the XV, the iPhone XV. Right, so that's all I had for the news and notes this week, because I've got a big feature topic that we're going to talk about now, and that is all about bass. So why don't we take a quick drinks break here. If you do have questions, you can ask those. Put question in front and I'll try and get back to them. But after the feature topic, we will have a dedicated time for some Q&A, and I'll answer any questions that you may have. But for now, let's jump in here and make sure we've got our screen share happening. We'll do a quick audio test to make sure that we have audio. Yeah. All right, I think we're good. So we're going to jump in and get started with this week's feature topic. Let's take a look at bass and how to add bass in GarageBand iOS. So we've got Benny set up here laying down a funky groove. Let's take a listen to Benny. So we've got our drummer track, and what we want to do here is add in some bass, but GarageBand actually gives you a heap of different ways to add bass to your projects. The first and simplest way is to use a bass loop. Now, if you've never used Apple loops before, loops are here in your top right. Just need to tap on this little icon and you're going to get this. Now, you can see here, I'm already cheated. I've already searched for bass. So if you didn't have that filter there, you'd have all of these different things that you can choose. And I chose one incorrectly there. We'll come back to loops. But what we can do is we can actually search here. So we're just going to type in bass and hit enter. And look at this. We've got so many different options here for bass, so many things that we can choose. Now, one that I really like, that I was trying out in testing, because I do test this stuff out so that you don't have to see me fumble around too much, was this one here, this Sweet Dreams synth bass. So if we tap on any of these, you get the bass sound like this. Yeah? Don't you reckon that's going to be funky? All right, so to bring it in, we tap it and we drag it on in and we drop it like that. And there you go. We've got the 4 bars there and we can play along. Here's Benny with our bass synth. I like that little very cool. Now we can of course grab our loop here at the end and move this forward and back. So because it's only 4 bars, we can do that. And what if we wanted to put the variation in? Well, no problem. We go back to our loops, and again, we're going to scroll back down to where we were for some reason. Have we got bass on there still? Yeah. So we'll go back to the Sweet Dreams. The Sweet Dreams are made of this bass, I believe. Why can't I find it? There it is. And we'll bring that one, tap and drag, and this time we'll pop it after that one, and then it will do this variation. So let's just take a listen to this variance. Whoa. Nice, yeah. I almost like that one better, but that's all right. We'll do it in 2 halves. We'll audition this and see how it's going to sound. So that is the easiest and simplest way to use bass, is to just add a loop in there. Now, if you haven't used loops before, there's some cool things you can do. You can tap here and go to settings. We can actually transpose it. So if we want this higher, we can boost it up, say like 5 semitones, and suddenly we've got a... Cool, yeah? You can reverse your samples, you can play around. I've got a whole video all about loops that you can check out. The one thing I want to draw attention to is this follow tempo and pitch. This means that if we change up our time signature or our key signature over here, and we go broop, it's actually going to follow it. So it'll actually adjust your loops so they go at the same speed. But even cooler than that, if you adjust the key signature and bring this down like so, you're going to get this. Right, very cool indeed. So let's take those out of there for now. We can bring them back in later if we decide we want them back. But I'm going to show you some other ways to add bass, because there's ways that you get a whole lot more control, and that is of course using our bass instrument. So to add our bass instrument, we tap on the plus button down here in the bottom, and what we're going to do is scroll across until we find the bass. And what we can do here is we're going to tap on more sounds, and then we can decide which bass we want. So you can either have bass guitars, or there are a few actual electronic basses, and you've also got your upright bass there. So let's just grab the P bass. Happens to be my favorite bass sound here in GarageBand because you get this. You get that real sort of Fender P bass sound, which I think sounds kind of cool. Now, there's a bunch of different ways that we can do this. The easiest way, again, we're kind of going from easiest to most challenging, is to use your autoplay. So if you've used autoplay before, you'll know that you just simply tap with a finger and it will start playing. We've got 4 different variants. 3, 4. Now, some instruments, and let's test if this is one of them, if you use 2 or 3 fingers, you actually get a second variation and a third variation on that same thing. So here's autoplay 4 by itself with 1 finger. Let's try it with 2 fingers. Yeah, that could work with this funk beat, right? That's our 2 finger. Let's try the 3 finger. Oh, that's pretty funky. That's a bit of a, won't you take me to a funky town? Right, I think I'm going to go with the 2. So to record in here, all we need to do is tap on the record button, then hit this C minor chord. And the reason I'm using C minor is that most of your loops are in C minor. And in fact, let me just check. Yeah, I've got C minor as my key signature. So most of your loops are in C minor. So I normally start there when I'm doing something like this. So let's hit the record button. I'm then just going to tap with 2 fingers on the C minor, and this will record in this bass pattern. Nice. Oh yeah. And we only need to do 4 bars because that's all recorded in there, and we can move this on back. Just drag that back. Now we can loop this by just tapping it and hitting loop, and there you go. We very quickly created a funky bass and drum beat by using our autoplay, right? Very cool. And the beauty of virtual instruments is if we want to change this up, we're like, I'm not feeling the P bass sound. I want to find out what this would sound like with a bit more of a muted bass sound. Well, guess what? We can come back to our instrument, tap on that one, and throw our muted bass on, and then, yeah, pretty cool, yeah. The other thing is we could use our electronic basses. So say we wanted to switch it up to the retro bass. We've got an electronic bass sound. Take a listen. Right? So yeah, I actually kind of like that one. I like that electronic bass. And with the electronic bass, you've even got your cutoff and your resonance that you can play around with here. So we'll increase the cutoff so it kind of does this. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. All right, so that is a way to create a bass sound there using your autoplay. But of course, we've got other ways to do this. Let's just, we'll mute out that one for now. We can actually add in using other bass guitar methods. So we'll come in here, we'll tap this one, we'll grab the Liverpool bass there. What on earth accent was that? We'll grab the Liverpool bass, and this time we'll show that we can actually use the chords. So we can just use these. So if you wanted to do this in C minor, you could be like, and then you would, and then F minor, and then G minor. So you got 4 notes, and you could use all 4 of those, and it kind of guides you here a little bit. So if we wanted to play along with this and we knew we were playing in C minor, we could hit record and just give it a bit of this. All right, most of that was garbage, but here's the thing. we can split to our heart's content. So I think this is where I got it right. Yeah, we'll use just that bit. We'll use this bar here. So this is where you can sort of pick and choose. We'll split that out. We'll grab it here. We'll just split this one bar, and then we'll just loop this over and over again. This is the beauty part, again, of virtual instruments. We can cut and splice and do all these fun things, and then just move this to the front, tap it, and loop it. And look at that, you've got it all the way through. So yeah, a cool way to do that. Let's delete that now because I don't really like it. So that's using your actual chords. You can, of course, use notes as well. So if we go back to here, rather than being in the chords mode, up in the top right here, we can tap on notes. And now we've actually got the ability to play a bass guitar. Now I can't really play with my mouse here because it's really clunky, So let's just play in a bit of a bass groove, but I'm going to use my fingers. You'll be able to see just vaguely where the strings are vibrating, where I'm hitting, but you won't be able to see the marker there because it's just a little bit too tricky. So let's play in a little bit of a funky bass groove here. We'll hit record and... And as you can see there, you can do cool things with the bass like string bends, or you can slide up and down, or you can even do hammer-ons. And I've got a whole video about bass guitar and guitar in GarageBand if you want to learn more about that. Excuse me a moment. All right, so let's so we've laid that down there, and once again, if we're not happy with that, we can cut it, we can slip it around. So we'll just go with those first two and then loop it out. And there you go. You can create yourself a pretty cool kind of groovy bass beat. And of course, you can edit too. So we can tap there and edit your notes. So you've got complete control here. You can come in and change the notes, change the velocity, do all your standard MIDI note editing like you can do in other things. We've got a heap more in here. Sorry, this is the complete. It is all about bass. I did warn you. So let's come back in here to the bass guitar because there's a couple of other cool things that we can do here. We can use the scale mode. So scale mode is awesome if you don't really know what notes you should be hitting. So what we're going to do is, let's say use the minor pentatonic. That's usually a cool scale to start with here. And in fact, we'll delete out that little bass groove that I laid down there. Delete that one. Come back to the start. And with our scale mode set, then we're right there in the pentatonic scale, so we can just play whatever note we like, and we know that it'll sit and sync nicely into this C minor groove that we're actually building out here. So let's hit the record button and just give this a bit of a... Oh, geez. See, sliding around with the mouse is a bit hard, so I'm just going to undo that. Just imagine for a moment that I'm down here pressing these buttons. So hit record, and we'll go. Right? You don't need to know a thing about the scale. You don't need to know what notes to hit. You don't need to be daunted by the actual layout of a bass guitar like that. You can throw your scale mode on and you're good to go. Pretty cool, yeah. I did this on strings recently. A lot of similar options to what we have with strings. I'm going to jump over now. The other way, so if you're not at home with these virtual instruments, you don't want to use loops, but you do love your keyboard, then yes, we can use our keyboard for bass sounds as well. Let's come out here. We'll mute out that one. We'll grab... Oh, did I solo that? I meant to mute it. We'll mute it. We'll go to the plus. And this time we're going to grab the keyboard. Let's lay down some keyboard bass. So we can tap here on more sounds to lay down our bass. And what we'll do first is, if you wanted to replicate the bass guitar, we'll go back to the top, main categories right here at the start. If you go down to other, we've actually got our bass guitars here. So say we wanted that P bass again, we can select the P bass, and now, I don't know what that was, but you can play the exact same thing that we played in there, but the benefit here is you're here on the keyboard now. And the keyboard has a bunch of other functions that we can actually try out here, and I will show you probably the coolest one at the end. So yeah, there you go. That's a tease. You have to hang around to check that one out at the end. But in its simplest form, we can hit record here, and then just... and apparently close GarageBand. But we have background mode running, so it worked okay. There you go. You can actually close down GarageBand in the middle of recording, and we get our funky P bass sound. And the cool thing about recording here instead of over on the actual bass guitar is now we can change that up to any keyboard instrument we like. Doesn't just have to be a bass, it can be anything we like. And that includes some of our synth bass sounds. So let's go to my favorite synth bass sound, the clutch bass. And let's just see what that sounds like with this bass groove. Yeah. Right? You can hear that stereo sound that you're getting in there. Very cool. And again, we've got, because we're now using an electronic or electric bass, we've got cutoff, we've got resonance, we've got our attack and our decay. So we can actually adjust that. So if we want a bit of a slower attack on that bass sound, we can get more of that warbly kind of sound, increase the decay. So you can actually go in and edit your sound and make it sound however you like. The other thing you've got here is you've got pitch and modulation wheels. So if we're... you can use your pitch bend wheel, and that will actually record that in. So if we wanted to come down here and we wanted to record in some of this bass, we hit the record button there. And there you go, it actually records in all of that movement of that pitch wheel. And if we take a listen, very cool, yeah. We'll come back over here, you've also got a modulation wheel there. So you can use some modulation effects. And the other cool thing is, on a lot of these synth bass sounds, where you touch on the key actually changes the sound. Isn't that cool? So you can be like... you can get some pretty insane kind of sounds with like a... by moving up and down your key. Now, we wouldn't be talking about synth sounds unless we talked about Alchemy, yeah? Because Alchemy Synth, that's built into GarageBand. Again, all this stuff is 100% free, which I find kind of ridiculous. Alchemy Synth here has a whole bunch of bass sound. Look at this. Look at that array of bass sounds that you have to choose from. And all of them are very cool. But of course, if you're creating electronic music, 808 is where it's at, yeah? So let's hit the 808 from the Flex and Flow kit, and we've got ourselves... we got ourselves a nice tuned 808. So let's come out of there. We'll get rid of this. We'll get rid of this. Actually, no, let's duplicate this out. Let's give ourselves a new track. We'll just solo that. And then let's bring in and play some 808 bass here. So if we hit the record button. There you go. We've got some 808 in our lives. Everyone is happy. So if we come back over to here, then we play it back. Let's solo that. There you go. Ooh. Nice. Very cool. We've got an extra tip here from Tom. And I've showed this before. I'm not going to show it in this video, but you can actually merge down your track and then move it over to a bass amplifier if you want to amplify your bass sound. So that's a really great additional tip. There you go. This is why I do these free, because it's there's lots of cool stuff here. All right. Let's now, what was my final thing? Oh yeah. So one final cool thing that we'll do here, we'll duplicate that out. We'll use this on the 808 bass. One of the coolest sounds that you can use with a bass here in the keyboard, obviously we have our scale mode. So we have the same scale mode that we had there with our guitar. So we can go back to our minor pentatonic and pretty cool, yeah? So we can do that. We'll just put this back to off again. But the arpeggiator is actually a cool thing. If you're creating some music and you want that sort of kind of sound, the arpeggiator is where it's at. So let's tap the arpeggiator. Let's hit the run button. And as a default here, this will play 16th notes over a 2-octave range. So if we just tap on the C here, it goes like that. If we want it to go over 4 octaves and we hit this, right, that's cool. But it's even cooler than that, because if we hold down 2 notes, so let's hold down a C minor chord with a C and a E flat. Right? How cool is that? So if we wanted to record that in, let's just hit the record button. Whoop, like that. And hold this down. And there you go. Without any knowledge of how to play those chords and do those complicated runs, look at that. It's created it. It's put it all in there for you. Funky as funky can be. And the arpeggiator has a whole bunch of other functions in there as well that you can play around with. So if we come back to there, you can make the note order go up and down or random or however you like it there. You can change this to make it either slower, or what I like to do is play around with like 30-second notes. And if you go like 30-second notes and then put the note rate right up here and you hold down, say 4 notes, let's try this now. How cool would that be underneath your track? And you move your fingers around. And you get that sort of deal going on. I just think it's cool. The arpeggiator is where it's at. And of course, you're in Alchemy, so you can change up all your settings here. You can scroll across and check out and change all of these different parameters and really customize your sound and make it your own. And there's a heap more that is linked. If you go to studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand, there is a whole bunch more videos as well as those that are linked down in the description of this video. So there you have it, the bass. And they probably just scratched the surface there. I did say that was like all the ways to add bass. I'm sure I've missed a bunch of stuff. I'm sure you have tips, and I'm sure you have other things that you want to add in. If you do, drop them down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you there. Alrighty, we'll have a quick drink, and then we'll move into our next section. All right. Hydration is important. All right, let's jump over here. Rob B has a tip. Rob B says, if you're very good at playing the notes on the bass guitar option, slow the tempo down. Yeah, before adding live guitars and record it slowly, the speed, the tempo, and see if it's any good. Exactly. So what Rob's saying here, and this is a great tip, it's actually related to our tip of the week that we'll talk about in a moment, is that if you're at this 108 tempo, if you're playing virtual instruments, you can make this like 50 and just play it at that speed if you wanted to. So you could like, okay, that might be a little bit too slow, but you know what I mean? You can actually adjust your tempo, and as long as you've got that follow pitch and tempo option set there, then you're good to go. While I'm in here, let's just, let's clean up a bit here. I need to just have one here that I can use for a future demo. And I kind of went a bit nuts creating all these different bass sounds. So what was the one? Well, that arpeggio was a bit weird. We'll stick with this one here. Now, if you have asked questions here, there's a lot of chat that's gone past, so you may need to re-ask it. Just put a question in front of your question, and we'll try to get to it. Let's just see if this is going to... Yeah, those two basses almost kind of work okay together, so we'll leave that like that. But yeah, good additional tip there, and that's a very good point. I didn't actually mention that you can record an actual bass. That is a big oversight, isn't it? So yeah, all the ways do virtually. So yeah, maybe that needs to be, because as you probably gathered, I do record these and then I clip them and then I have them as their own separate bit, not just in the weekly show. So yeah, that's a good point. Maybe it needs to be virtual bass. How to record virtual bass in GarageBand. Yes, let's continue on though, shall we? Because we've got more to talk about here. We'll go back to our agenda. Right. Let's go into the not rant of the week, the tip of the week, because that's what we're talking about. And we'll need to go back over here. So there we go. Our tip of the week this week is using your time signature and changing time signature, key signature to adjust your tempo and to adjust the sound of your track. Let's jump in and take a look. So here is the track that we've got set up here. I've got Benny on some drums, I've got a P bass, and I've got an 808 bass. This is currently sounding a bit like this. It's okay, yeah, but this groove's a little bit slow. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to actually change that up. So we want to actually adjust our tempo. And we can do that right here in this cogwheel. We can tap tempo, but before we do that, let's just check, because what we need to do is come in here and go to our settings and make sure that we've got the looping on and that we haven't changed anything in here. So everything's looking cool here. Now, if you do have loops in here, the same thing will work. So before we do this, let's add in a loop as well. We'll grab this Sweet Dreams synth bass here, because changing your tempo and changing your key signature doesn't only work for your virtual instruments, it actually works for Apple loops. Now, warning, it will not work for your own recorded sound. So if you actually come in here and you grab your microphone and you record in your own sound, changing your tempo or changing your key won't adjust that sound. So keep that in mind. Your recorded instruments won't change, but anything virtual, any drummer and any Apple loop. So any green track, any yellow track, and a blue track that's an Apple loop will change. So let's take a listen to this now. Here's this as it is. All sorts of bass going on there, yeah? So what we can do, we can change the tempo. We want to up-tempo this. We're going to tap that. We're going to drag this up to, say, 120. And let's get this really kicking along, get the party started. Maybe a little fast. So again, you can adjust this. You can adjust it to the tempo that you want it at, and it's going to sound cool. Now, the other thing we can do is actually adjusting our key signature, but this is what I was trying to show before, and I realized I was in a MIDI track, not an Apple loop. If we tap on the Apple loop and we go to settings, what you want to do is make sure that follow tempo and pitch is on here. This will only work if you use follow tempo and pitch, because if we turn that off and then come up here and change our key signature, take a listen to this. So say we up this to like B flat, and C at the moment, we make it B flat. See how this changes our P bass and our 808 bass, but it won't have changed this. Take a listen now, it's going to crunch. Not cool, yeah? So we'll undo that. So what we need to do is actually make sure that we have this on follow tempo and pitch. And now, if we come in here and we change this, let's make it something like G. And if we bring these all together, everything's together, yeah? Pretty cool. Now, you can manually transpose if you wanted to change things and you didn't want to use the follow tempo, or you didn't want to use your key signature there, you can transpose. So if we tap here, we can go to settings and we can actually, oh, no, it's not in there. We have to manually do it in here, don't we? So we need to go to edit like this, and we can select all these and just move them. So if we wanted to move this, you could just come in here and select all your notes and move them up or down. So there are other ways to do that, and you can use your loops here. This is what I was thinking of again. You can come in here and you can adjust this. You can transpose it manually up and down a number of semitones to change that as well. So that is a very simple way that we can use tempo and key signature. If you're using virtual instruments, remember that you can do that. And a tip that someone just gave here in the chat, I think it was Rob in the chat, is it's really good if you're trying to record in a part. So let's say I was trying to play a guitar part over the top of this, and at 110 BPM I had no hope. Well, guess what? I can come in here and reduce this down. Remember, you do need to be using virtual instruments. Don't go singing or playing in and recording, because then of course it won't change that. But if I was using the virtual guitar, I could set this to 65. And it gives me a really cool slower beat, and then I could come in here and grab my guitar, and if I was going to shred out a guitar solo, then we could come in here, we could go into here and hit record on this one, and it goes nice and slow for us, like. And apart from hitting the wrong note there in that solo, you can see that I recorded that solo in. And now, if we up the speed back up to 110, 120, wherever we want it to be, then we can play it along. And so very cool if you want to play in a groove, but don't have the coordination to get it happening. So there you go. We have our key signature, our time signature, a very cool way to adjust your track. And everything, if it's all virtual, everything follows along and everyone's happy. So I hope you found that one useful. Before we get to our rant and any other Q&A, let's jump into my plugin or app of the week. Now, if you are using a bunch of bass, you may want to EQ it, yeah? So what we're going to look at this week is an EQ app. So if you want to EQ your tracks here in GarageBand, you've got a built-in EQ. So if we wanted to grab this loop here, we can tap the plugins and EQ here, and right here under plugins and EQ, we have the visual EQ. Now, this has been improved in recent times. You can see there, you've got your little markings there. If you look up the top, you can see what frequency you're adjusting and what gain. But you've only got 3 bands, and you've only got the ability to use these as peak EQ. So you can go up and down, but there's no other shapes. And you can't change what's called the Q setting, meaning that you can't adjust how wide or how narrow your EQ changes are. So it's okay if we hit play here. We want a bit more bass sound. We can add that in. We want to pull out some treble. So it's a very quick and effective and simple way to adjust. But what if you want more power, more control? Well, that's where a little app called LRC5 comes in. I have showed this before. But if you're new to GarageBand, you need to go and download LRC5 right now. It is on the App Store for free, and you can use it as a plugin here in GarageBand. So you can see here, LRC5. We're going to tap on that one from our friends at Neon Silicon. We'll turn off the visual EQ, and now we can come in here and look, we got similar layout, but instead of 3 bands, we got 5 bands. So we can do the same thing as we did in visual EQ. We'll play this, give it a bit more bass, put a nice bass shelf up there, do a cut on the top there. So that's cool. We're able to do that, but here's the difference. We still have an additional 3 bands in here that we can play with, and you're thinking, oh, well, that's okay, but what did that do that's so special? Well, the cool thing is, if we wanted to enhance or cut a particular frequency in this sound, we can actually adjust the Q settings. So it's hard to show here because you need to use 2 fingers. If we've got one of these selected, as we do, what you can do is tap with 2 fingers and drag out, and look at that. As we are doing the opposite of pinching, whatever you call that, spreading, you can actually create a very narrow EQ, and this way we can actually enhance or cut a specific frequency without it impacting the frequencies around that. So let's have a play with this sound now. We'll come back and hit play. Get a bit of a filter going on there. So say we want that particular frequency to really come out there, well, we can use that, yeah? And you can see down in the bottom right, you can see that we're at 944 Hertz, and we've boosted it by 11 dB. Now, when I let go, it goes away, but that's the spot where you look at it, yeah? So you can see that. Just X out. If we drag down, we can really get rid of that frequency. And it just gives you so much more control. So EQ, of course, you can use on your bass, you can use on drums, you can use on vocals. It's great on vocals, especially anyone else have a sibilant S sound or something that they want to get rid of. Well, guess what? This is a great way to notch that out. You find the frequency where your S's are at their most extreme suffer and succotash, and then you simply scroll down. So I ran out of S sounds. You simply reduce it down, and you can actually get rid of some of those sibilant S sounds in your EQ. So it's a very, very handy. It's the first app I recommend. If someone comes to me and says, I'm just getting into GarageBand and I've got no money, what do I get in terms of free apps? I say Rough Rider 3. And this one, LRC5. So Rough Rider 3 is a very cool compressor, and this is a very cool EQ, because between a compressor and an EQ, you're pretty much going to be able to do a lot of that audio processing that you need to do to get the job done. There you go. That is LRC5. I know I've shown it before, but I got to keep coming back to it because sometimes I forget. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll just throw some EQ, and then I'm like, no. I'll throw on LRC5. That is what we got to do. Hello to some folks who've joined us since we've been doing the show. We've got Michael, who's in the house, Binny, Sandu. I hope you are doing well. Alex Backus, not sure if I saw you come in. We've got the M memes going on here. Still don't know what the M's all about, but we'll go there. I'll just accept it anytime that it's people having fun. And like I said, as long as the M comes along with thumbs up and donations to the channel, you can type whatever you want in there, within reason. Yeah. Don't. How many bass players does it take to change a light bulb? Alrighty. And Mark says, one way to remove your S sounds is to remove your denture. Yes. Touche. Righty dokie. Let's continue on here. What have we got? We're coming towards the end of the show. I do have a little bit of a rant, and it's ironic. It's an ironic rant, or at least it's a coincidental rant, because we just talked about my favorite free apps. But what I wanted to talk about here, and I wanted your opinion on this, I get a lot of people. So when I do reviews of a bunch of free apps, and I do reviews of a bunch of low-end, really cheap gear. I then do reviews of gear that costs a bit more. So if people want a pair of headphones, I'll say Sennheiser HD 280 Pros, because I find them the best headphone. They're $100, but if someone says, I've only got $50, then I'll say, okay, check out some Audio Technica, some AKG, whatever. And when it comes to apps, there are some things that free just doesn't cut it. And I wanted to ask this. There seems to be a lot of hate for any app developers charging for anything they do. So I did a video recently on Visibel. Visibel from Clevgrunt. It's a great little app. If you've never used it before, it looks like this. We'll show it here on the screen. Actually, it's gonna show in portrait mode. One of the downsides. There's our goat. So this is a visualization plugin. You can create very cool, very intricate video visualizations for your tracks, for your songs, and it works really well. But here's the thing: it's about a $10 app. Because the developers have put a lot of time and energy and effort into creating all of this. They've got a bunch of templates, they've got a bunch of different themes that you can select from, and they've spent a lot of time developing this app. And you know what? The thing about people that work in the music industry is that they need to pay their bills and they need to keep their lights on and they need to feed and clothe and educate their children. So I do get a little bit over some of the comments that I get from time to time about, but it's not free. Because for starters, whenever I do a review, I will mention if it's free or not, and I'll say this is a paid app, costs you about $10 in the App Store, and then I'll go into it. And yeah, I'm just continually baffled by the amount of people that will not even consider something if it's anything but free. And I wonder if that is that the social media culture where all of the platforms are free, or at least perceived free? So you can use Instagram for free, you can use Facebook for free, you can watch as much YouTube as you want for free. And we're at this point now where a user-pays society doesn't make sense. So my fear with this, so here's the concern I have, is that this is going to drive more models, more ad-based revenue models. And you might be saying, that's really hypocritical, Pete, because you work on YouTube and your model is based on people watching ads. Yeah, but I'm 100% transparent about that. I'll tell you exactly how that all works, and I'm more than happy to do that at any time. But I'm just a little bit concerned here that we're going to drive the good developers to create worse products by people not wanting to pay for them, or they're going to create these new models of ad-based things where would you want to use Wizabelle? Like if you were here using Visabelle or Wizabelle, and it had to play a 1 minute ad for every 5 minutes that you used it so that the developer could get paid. Is that what we want? Is that where we want to go as creators? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I find it really unusual that there's this whole everything must be free kind of side of thing. But yeah, I think it's an expectation thing. It's where it's at now. But remember, the one thing that I will say on this is that there is actually no such thing as free. So there's a very small proportion. So there are some developers that are just for the love of music and for the good of the world, they're going to create an app, they're going to put it in the App Store, and then they're going to update it and keep it up to date, and people can download it and use it, and great. There's others like our friends at Nembrini that have a bunch of free apps that also have paid apps. So the free apps are to get you in the door and to get you going, wow, Nembrini are awesome, they make cool apps, so that when they release something for $5 or $10, you'll consider buying it. I like that model. I think that model is cool because you're giving some away for free, and then you've got something premium. But then there's companies that are just charging, and I'm wondering how long that's going to last. Are we going to change up? Where are we going with this? But the one final thing I'll say on this, because it's only a mini rant here today, is that if the product is free, you are the product. I'll say that again for the people in the back. If a product is free, you are the product, because 99% of the time, a free product is going to mean that your data, your demographics, your ability to be advertised to, they are what is for sale. And it's really interesting how it works with Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and what's the TikTok. Clubhouse is a new one. Interested to see what happens with Clubhouse and how they're going to monetize. But the monetization is coming in from your actual information. So yeah, if something is free, just be aware of that. I'm not saying that's bad either. I actually like it. I'm a controversial character because I say I love targeted ads. You know why? Because if I'm on Facebook, I want ads for things that I may be interested in. I want a masterclass ad. I want an ad for a new gadget or a new piece of software that I may be interested in. I don't want ads for reality TV. If I'm in my Facebook feed and an ad for Married at First Sight comes on, I'm going to just lose my stuff. But if they know the stuff I'm into, and then companies can target me based on the demographic and the data that I've chosen to share, isn't that win-win? I mean, go push past the creepiness factor and go, isn't that better? If you're using a free service and you're accepting the terms of service, you're choosing to use it, would you not prefer to get ads that are targeted to you as opposed to ads that are targeted to the general public? Because you know what? What the general public like is really weird, and I don't like it. So there you go. That's my rant. Enough said. All right. What does Infarction says? So Infarction says, Downloaded and tried lots of free apps, and they were so useful and certainly got me going. But I've splashed down on Mixbox and was the best money I spent on any app. Sometimes paying is necessary. Absolutely. Absolutely, indeed. And as Tom says, now that the apps are in the quality of desktop apps, the mobile apps, prices are going to rise accordingly. Yeah, still great value for the most part. Absolutely. So yeah, again, there's a lot of things. Jade says she's going to continue the rant. There you go. I'll handball it. I'll give a sneaky handball to Jade, and she'll run it in and drop punt from 15 meters out and put it straight through the uprights. You can bet. Where are we at? Yes, so that was our rant. We've done our tip. We've done our plug-in. We're actually done. Who knew? With all that ranting and doing all that bass stuff, I would have thought that I would have gone long. But instead, we're going short. So there you go. If no one has any final questions or final comments, I think we're going to finish up. Alex Backus, thank you. I do appreciate that. The three euros there with the super sticker. Thank you for supporting the channel. Let's do the joke. Without your support, we can't keep the lights on, and we end up looking like this. Remember those ads that were back in the 80s where it would be someone sitting in a chair, and then they'd be in the dark, and it'd be like, I've been searching for a long time for finding a brand of oil, but now I've chosen Valvoline. It was weird, wasn't it? It's like, it's never natural. When is it ever natural for someone to be sitting in the dark like that and then the light to come on and them start speaking? It was the weirdest marketing thing. James Kimball, do you think LumaFusion is worth $20? Yeah, I 100% do. LumaFusion is probably my favorite paid app on all of the App Store. I use it every day. Every single video I edit that I upload to the channel is edited on this iPhone running that app there, LumaFusion. So in fact, when it loads up, you'll see the video that I'm working on right now. So this is the video I'm working on showing the live gig that I went to the other day. I don't know why I was doing that, but yeah. So this is me using LumaFusion, and I literally use it every day. And there aren't too many apps I can say that I use every single day, but LumaFusion, if you're into video editing, or even if you're in audio and you want to create promotional videos, or you want to do anything with your audio, then LumaFusion is almost a must. It's something that I think is very much worth it. As Joe says, you get what you pay for. You really do. You get what you pay for. Rob also bought Mixbox when I demoed it. Yeah, and that's the thing. You do get what you pay for. And I said I'd stop ranting, and I'm probably going to end up filling the last 10 minutes with a rant. But I have found that I'm kind of past the point where I try to cheap out on things, because what I've found is that the economy doesn't actually work out. So think appliances, right? I don't buy anything but Samsung or Panasonic or Sony when it comes to a TV. Like, I know that TCL make good stuff, or Huawei, or any of these other brands. I'm sure they're fine, but I've bought them before and they've lasted like 3-4 years, and then something weird goes wrong with them. So I'm now at the point where, in my old age, I realized that you buy live music. Like I say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's kind of the same with consumer goods. It's the same with the things you pay for. Sometimes you have to pay a little bit more up front, and you're going to get a lot more value long term. And I think it's why I bought a Mac, to be honest. I knew that $1,099 for a Mac, for $1,099, I could have built myself a pretty kick-ass gaming PC, right? With 32 gig of RAM and like a Ryzen processor and like a decent video card. Not like high end, but decent. It would kick along. But I didn't want that, because in a couple of years' time, I would be like, oh, I'm actually a YouTube creator that uses Apple stuff. Well, I should have a Mac. And Apple do have that market of the premium product. Now, you could argue that with their iPads and iPhones, maybe they're not, but that's really only because they keep bringing out new stuff. There are still people rocking iPad version 2s and iPhone 5Ss, and they still work, and they're still fine, and they're still functional. Yeah, you don't get all the bells and whistles in the latest iOS versions, but they're still working and they're still functional. So yeah, I say all that to say, as Joe says, you get what you pay for. And I'm at the point now where I will pay a little bit extra to get something that I know is going to be of a premium quality that will probably last a lot longer, except for jeans, because it doesn't matter whether I buy Levi's or Jags at $100 or the Kmart specials at $10. They seem to last about the same time, about 3 months. But maybe I just am very, very rough on my jeans. Alrighty, we are going to we're going to head off now, but let's give Jade a bit of a plug here. So So in 10 minutes time, or what is now nearly 5 minutes, Jade is looking at Digitism 2000 from Audio Kit. It costs a few dollars. There you go. It's not free, but it's quality. I saw Patrick from the GarageBand Guide. Speaking of GarageBand, he was checking that out and said it was really good. He's a big Audio Kit fanboy though, so he'll say everything. No, not really, but he does like Audio Kit stuff. Whereas I haven't used a lot of it, so I'll be tuning in and checking that one out. The other thing I mentioned it over the weekend as well, is that Joey Helpish has just finished his remix of my 2018 album Selfish Aware, called Helpish Aware, and we're just teeing up some details where we'll have Joey on the show to talk about the process and maybe even have a sneak peek, listen to some of those tracks, and hopefully I can do the same and jump over to Joey's channel and have a chat with him. So keep an eye out for that one. That is going to do it for this one. I hope you got some value out of this. If you did, hit the thumbs up. If you're not subscribed already, you probably are, but do hit the subscribe button. And if you want any more information, that's right, I didn't do Resource of the Week because I'm just going to throw it out there. It's my GarageBand page on Studio Live Today. So if you go to studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand, that's going to give you links to my GarageBand Essentials video series, a bunch of Q&A and FAQ about GarageBand. So if you're a GarageBand iOS user, studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand is where you want to go. Thank you, folks. I will talk to you soon. Remember, until next time, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, keep creating, and